The filmmaking of director Alfonso Cuarón places a large importance on visual style. His work is characterized by a focus on fantastical, thematic, and structural elements told through the naturalistic, documentary-esque lens of his frequent close collaborator, DP Emmanuel Lubezki. After first meeting each other at film school, the two formed a close creative bond and would go on to collaborate on many films together. In this video, I'll break down 3 of those films, shot at increasing budget levels: Tu Mamá También, Children of Men, and Gravity, to show how their style visually evolved over the years, yet maintained certain visual trademarks in line with the increased scope and funding of their movies. After achieving success at film festivals with his first film, Cuarón was offered the opportunity to direct the larger budget, $15 million cinematic adaptation of A Little Princess, which would be distributed by Warner Brothers. Following the critical success of A Little Princess, he was offered to direct another, even larger budget, $25 million literary adaptation, Great Expectations. For these films, Cuarón and Lubezki used their budgets to create a visual style which was based on precise, traditional, commercial production techniques which were prevalent in Hollywood, such as using stable movement from cranes and dollies, more conventional lighting techniques, carefully designed sets, and covering the films through a more standard coverage of angles. Instead of continuing on this trajectory of directing larger and larger budget literary adaptations for studios, Cuarón decided to reject this path for his next film. He decided to return to Mexico to produce a lower budget $5 million, looser, expressive road trip movie, which he wanted to make before going to film school. With Lubezki, the pair decided to shy away from the more polished visual style of filmmaking they'd become accustomed to, and dived into a rougher, more naturalistic style. Cuarón and Lubezki's collaboration was a close one. They worked together to come up with a considered visual approach for the film in pre-production. Emmanuel is not a director of photography who puts up lights and sets up frames. He's involved in narrative. For as long as I was writing the script, I was talking about it with him. The style they landed on was influenced by the idea of having an explorative, observational camera, which observed the on-screen world in a realistic way. There was this idea that the camera was going to be seeking out little observations, almost in a documentary style. There's an action going on here, but the camera has its own comments. Rather than strictly following the actions of the characters, there are moments where the frame subtly drifts off to focus on the political and economic realities taking place in the background. These realities play out as a backdrop to the characters, just as often happens in life, which the camera draws subtle attention to, without these themes overwhelming the story or feeling forced. Lubezki developed a style to the cinematography which would eventually become his trademark. In order to see more information in the background of a wider frame and complement the handheld documentary-esque look, he decided to shoot on wider focal length lenses, mainly using available, natural light. When we started in pre-production, we decided we wanted to do it handheld, mostly because of the freedom that it would give to us and the actors. But at the same time, we didn't want to do this TV thing, where the camera is moving like crazy. We started to think about everything being quite posed, watching everything from a distance. Working in this style, without extensive technical gear, grip rigs, or lighting setups, meant that more of the relatively low budget could be prioritized to freeing up shooting time. Cuarón had more time to work with actors on scenes and incorporate elements of improvisation, or new ideas, or even scenes which would emerge as they were shooting. A large part of the look came from the approach to the composition and coverage of scenes. It was about decomposing, as opposed to composing the shot. It was about making it look improvised. Cuarón referenced the French New Wave film Adieu Philippine, whose wider, less formally composed frames gave it an energetic feeling as the characters on screen engaged in their lives. Another prevalent, stylistic visual technique Lubezki and Cuarón employed was using long takes. During important moments in the film, they let scenes play out in extended, single takes without making a cut, which engrosses the audience in the moment as it plays out on screen in real time. In terms of gear, Lubezki's choice of lenses and film stock would remain similar throughout his career. He shot it on Kodak film stock with an Arriflex 2C and Zeiss Superspeed lenses. Super speeds are fast, sharp lenses with neutral, sometimes slightly cool, color reproduction. From viewing the footage, it appears that Lubezki likely used the wider 18mm or perhaps the 25mm lens for much of the film. So with a $5 million budget, Tu Mamá También established a visual language which would later be expanded by Cuarón and Lubezki. They used relatively minimal gear by shooting handheld on wider lenses with natural light to provide a documentary, observational style, which used long takes at key moments with characters shot against a background of social themes. Building upon this style, Cuarón once again chose a film with an entirely different subject matter and genre, that of science fiction and action. Shooting a much larger sci-fi film with complex action sequences required a larger, estimated budget of $76 million. Much of the additional money went towards paying for the construction of complex shots with lots of special effects, production design work, and extras. They also shot in expensive public locations such as well-known streets in London, which can be pricey to shut down for extended periods during shooting. I imagine a fair portion of the budget of Children of Men also went to hiring a team of established, famous actors, as well as paying for a VFX-heavy post-production finish. Rather than shooting the action sequences from a variety of angles for a burst of quick cuts in the edit, as is the norm, Cuarón and Lubezki went the opposite direction and built upon the wide, handheld, long take, documentary visual style they had used in Tu Mamá También. Of these proposed long takes, perhaps the most difficult one to execute was a roadside ambush scene in a car, which builds into a tense action chase sequence. On Tu Mamá También, we started exploring shots that are longer, where the camera is moving around the actors and there are no cuts, and you feel like you're there. When Alfonso started talking to me about the scene in Children of Men, he said, "I would love to do it in one shot, and I have an idea. Why don't we put the car on a stage and surround it with a green screen, basically to shoot it as a visual effect?" For probably a week, I was thinking that way, until I realized it was absolutely the wrong way to do it. The rest of the movie was going to have a very naturalistic, almost documentary-like feel to it, and maybe the best way to shoot it was to really be in the car with the actors. After being dismissed by production as being impossible to pull off, Lubezki and his technical team came up with an incredible, practical solution for the orchestrated, long take. The roof of the picture vehicle was cut off, and 2 power slides were mounted. This allowed an operator to move the camera on 2 axes, forward and backward, and left and right. An Arriflex 235, a lightweight 35mm camera, was mounted on a doggy cam, Sparrow head, which Lubezki could then operate remotely. On top of the car, out of sight, they mounted a station where Lubezki operated the camera, a grip operated the 2-axis dolly, the first AC remotely pulled focus, and Cuarón watched an image and could give direction. The picture vehicle was put on a process trailer, or low loader, which is a trailer that is towed low to the ground by another vehicle so that the actor does not actually have to drive the car. Because the camera would be seeing 360 degrees of space, the towing vehicle had to be extremely low to the ground. They used 2 go-karts, one on each end of the process trailer, to drive the car. The one go-kart driver would drive the forward section, then the other go-kart driver would take over for the section where the car needed to reverse. This complex, custom rig resulted in a groundbreaking single-take shot, which truly immerses the audience into the sequence in a realistic way without using excessive VFX. The power that shooting it in real time had, when I saw it, it felt that you were right there with the characters, and it feels claustrophobic and scary, and I loved that moment. Although much of the film relied on using natural light, there were sequences which required large lighting setups. For example, for night exteriors, Lubezki got his team to rig a large light box from a crane. This diffused overhead source provided a soft moonlight fill to the scene, so that there was enough light to expose the image without it being totally black. Children of Men was shot on Kodak 5229 film stock, mainly on an Arri Cam LT for handheld work, with master prime lenses. Master primes are a successor to the vintage super speeds, and also sharp, with a fast stop, but with fewer artifacts and distortion, resulting in an extremely clean image. Like on Tu Mamá También, he also used a lot of wider focal lengths, such as an 18mm lens. Cuarón therefore built upon the visual style he had developed with Lubezki, but used his increased budget to tell a larger scope story with huge action set pieces on real locations, with more complex technical gear, a more expensive, famous cast, and pricier VFX post-production work. Just as Children of Men built upon the visual style of Tu Mamá También, so too did Gravity, Cuarón's next film. However, it did so in a different way. The $100 million space thriller was so VFX heavy that 80 minutes out of its 91-minute running time was composed of visual effects shots. Yet for a film which was predominantly built in post-production, it still shares the same visual language that Cuarón and Lubezki had spent years developing. The film is built around a series of long takes from a wide-angle, observational camera, with realistic lighting and a shifting perspective between characters and their background. The language I've been working on with Chivo in these recent films is not one based on close-ups. We include close-ups as part of a longer, continuous shot, so this all becomes choreography. Lubezki termed these shots elastic, as they would change, for example from a wide all the way up to very close in a single shot with a continuously moving camera. While Cuarón's early films were more prone to improvisation and changing on set, Gravity had a definite structure. They spent 2 years pre-visualizing the film, where every shot was worked out, storyboarded, and timed on an animatic. Going into production, one of the main visual challenges was creating a system where the actors were lit realistically, so that when their faces were rotoscoped and placed in a VFX space world, the lighting continuity would feel natural and real. Most of the bad CG in the world doesn't work because the lighting is bad. When the lighting of the background doesn't match the lighting of the foreground or the actors, then things collapse. You need someone with an eye and with a command of the technology. Just because a movie has extensive CG, that doesn't necessarily mean a diminished role for the cinematographer. Outside the spaceship, everything is lit by a single source, the sun. As the spaceship rotated or the actors moved, the direction of this light would change. So in effect, Lubezki was tasked with being able to move around the sun during a shot. To achieve this, they constructed a light box made up of a wall of LED panels. Actors were placed inside this LED box on a wire rig. The panels could be controlled so that as the sunlight wrapped around an actor, the brightness, color, and quality of the LEDs would shift across to different panels, corresponding to how the light would realistically move. To move the camera in a precise way, they used a motion control robotic arm. Specific movement was then programmed, and the arm, with the camera attached, would repeat that exact same movement frame for frame. Gravity was shot digitally on an Alexa with Lubezki's favorite master prime lenses. After production, Lubezki lit each frame digitally by working closely with a CG lighting supervisor and carefully describing the lighting he desired in each shot. The CGI work took over 3 years to be completed. So, Gravity, based on a similar visual concept as Cuarón's previous films, used the increased budget to pay for high-end technical rigs and extended the production process, which required years of specialized VFX work. Cuarón's career is an interesting one, which has seen him direct a broad range of films, from a lower-budget road trip movie to a high-budget sci-fi thriller. Throughout his diverse filmography, he has, along with his DP, crafted a unique visual style based around naturalistic photography with a documentary-esque explorative camera, which often uses long, single takes. The visual philosophy of his $5 million movie remained very similar to that of his later $100 million film. What did change and affected the budget was the kind of stories and their increased scope. Cuarón's career is a testament to the idea that making a great film does not necessarily require massive funding, but rather a clear and unique vision. Thanks everyone for the continued support. As always, liking, subscribing, commenting, or supporting on Patreon would greatly help the channel. Until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye.